Welcome to the Engineering and Public Works Roadshow, coming to you from Winston Salem, North Carolina at the Great Trail State Conference, celebrating the Great Trail State of North Carolina. And we're putting a focus this week on a segment of infrastructure that is something that's not really focused on enough, and that is recreational infrastructure, really the core part of our trails and greenways, the things that actually tie communities together, allow people to get out, get healthy, get active, and enjoy their communities. And we're focusing on a series of projects this week, and I'm very, very pleased to be joined by Spencer Finch. He is the Principal of Engineering at Alta.
Alta Planning and Design, yep.
And we're talking about the Ecusta Rail Trail project, and then also the High Point Southwest Greenway project.
Correct.
Spencer, welcome, number one. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about this. Let's talk about, I guess, both of these projects. First, the Ecusta Rail Trail.
Yeah.
How did that project come to be, and how did it get to your firm's attention?
Sure. So the Ecusta is a long-term dream for a lot of folks out there in Western North Carolina, right? So if you've never been here before, it's not too far from Great Smoky Mountains National Park, which is the #1 national park in the nation, right? And it's right at the doorstep of the Pisgah National Forest, which is the #1 national forest. But these two communities, Brevard and Hendersonville, like they're small towns, right? Brevard has 7,000 people, Hendersonville has 16,000. They're up in the mountains. They're amazing towns, have a lot going for them, but they also have seen better days, right? A lot of the industry, a lot of the lumber industry, for example, that used to be there is gone.
A lot of railroad towns, a lot of towns dependent on rail service, right?
Right, and all the railroads that were there and had all these long cars full of lumber, right? The railroads are abandoned, right? And they have dreamed forever, what can we do with all this right away? What can we do to revitalize our communities? And they had been working for 20 years to get the Ecusta Trail done, which would connect Brevard and Hendersonville and provide a new gateway into Pisgah National Forest and Great Smoky Mountains as well, right? So I think we came in, right, and started working with them around 2020 and put some grant applications in and trying to flesh out how this vision could become reality.
This is rails to trails. I mean, you already have a right-of-way. You already have a path that you can actually use as the foundation for a trail project. And for a project that's situated both at the doorsteps of a national park and a national forest, and this is a big thing for economic development for towns like this.
It is.
How was the community in getting this project started up? What's the stakeholder involvement like, working with these towns and trying to figure out what the because a lot of this was also an economic impact assessment in addition to the actual planning, study, and design work. Explain a little bit about how you worked with the local communities in figuring out what the opportunities could be here.
Sure. So. A lot of it was grassroots, right? So a lot of there's the Friends of the Ecusta Trail, right? And they work closely with the two towns and also the two counties, right? So it's Henderson County and Transylvania County. But we all know that everybody has limited resources, right? It's a key challenge for everybody across the nation. So even pulling together all the resources from towns and counties and volunteers, it's really tough to pull something together. So it took them a few years, right? But they knew they first wanted to secure the rail alignment. So we helped them, map out the whole alignment, figure out how they would talk to the railroad to secure that, and then get the environmental clearances, right? We did that in a hurry, and in the meantime, they were doing a lot of fundraising, and first step accomplished, they secured a majority of the alignment for the Rail to Trail project.
So it really was a grassroots, ground-up effort to get this done. From the engineering perspective, what unique challenges did this pose? Since this was an older rail track, you did have environmental concerns. Were there any specific unique challenges to this that you had to overcome?
So I think there were many challenges throughout the process. So the first step was really trying to get the acquisition secured and the environmental clearance for that step, right? And then the project followed in parallel tracks, no pun intended, right? For a while, right? And the two communities mostly collaborating, but sometimes working apart, right? So the two counties as well, right? And we're trying to get things done, one from one end and one from the other end. And I think things really started popping up and getting on track in the last 2-3 years when they started collaborating, right? So going across county lines, talking to NCDOT, and trying to pursue these larger federal grant opportunities. So from the finance side, I think that's what really opened up the floodgates, right, for the success of the project. On the engineering side of things, one section was easier to design, and another firm, took care of that. And on the section closer to Brevard, there's a lot of engineering challenges, such as like the old railroad bridges. Can they be reused or not, right? So a lot of analysis had to go into that. And that's underway right now. It's under design, and both counties, both towns working together with lots of state support and the federal funding that's now available.
Now, with the High Point project, was it similar in nature to to the Rails to Trail project in that it was the same kind of a grassroots push, or was this kind of a different animal?
Let me just mention before we go to High Point, like really quick, and we might want to edit it out, right? So I think a key feature, like the two key features of the Ecusta Trail are really the access to all these amazing natural resources, right? Pisgah National Forest and Great Smoky Mountains. But the other component is that almost half of the trail alignment is in disadvantaged areas, right? So
that's important.
You always think about the rural communities, right? And how can this transform them? And Brevard is the site of a world famous music festival that goes on every summer at Brevard College, right? How can they leverage that and have more folks in this future trail accessing Pisgah National Forest, but also bringing economic development to the town, right? And making sure that all these disadvantaged communities along the trail also benefit for it. So that was a key focus of the planning and design of that.
Yeah, because I mean, these are the things that unlock economic development in rural areas, right? If you have the benefit of having two massive, popular, parks, then you also have the music festival. What else can happen to bring people into the area when the music session is not in season, or if the park isn't, if it's off season, right? You need that sustained economic development.
And they're thinking about already, right? Like, so there are breweries that have arrived already. There are more that want to come to town. But beer is not the solution to everything, right? So that's but that's one huge economic development driver, right? And they're thinking more about more farm to table type investments. They're following up with a wayfinding program for the two counties, right? So that folks actually know how to get to the trail, how to get to the natural attractions. So there's a whole strategy behind it that is, creating some huge benefits already. And
I think that's something which it can't be stated enough, is how projects like this do unlock so much opportunity of turning this from maybe a seasonal area to a year-round area of recreation and tourism, bringing in businesses that are going to be locally owned. You say, you have farm to table, you're talking bringing in to other sectors of the economy. There's a lot there that can be done.
And by the way, let me mention too that some of the best mountain bike trails in the nation are right around there. So that's a huge community that's going to be using and visiting these two towns more and more.
Absolutely. So, and it all starts. I mean, it really does start. I mean, it starts with the engineer. It really does. I mean, you look at the area and say, what can we do? You kind of look at the challenges. You try to figure out a solution. You work with the groups and the stakeholders. And I think that's something else about the profession that a lot of people don't focus in on, is the fact that a lot of people think, okay, engineering, I'm just going to be sitting at a desk, or I'm going to be designing something, or it's all math and science. 90% of what you and I just talked about was stakeholder engagement, community involvement, talking to people, and working through challenges that aren't always going to be mathematical or scientific, right?
Could not agree more. And just to close it off, I think one of the greatest things to see is, the engineers, as engineers, we go out there and do the field view, right? When the project is just a glimmer in somebody's eye. And you walk that abandoned railroad tracks and you got to be very careful, with those old bridges and so forth. And then you realize, you think through the problems, how you're going to build a trail. And then when it gets to ribbon cutting, right, you're actually out there.
Because you're there at the beginning, and in your mind's eye, you're seeing what the end result could be. And then you're standing there at the ribbon cutting, and it's become realized.
That's it.
Yeah, which is really, it must be, that's got to be a rewarding thing, because these trails are going to last generations. They're going to be families using these that, for years to come. Personally and professionally, how does that make you feel when you can contribute like that to the community?
It's what we do, right? It's what we work for. All these trail engineers, that's why we're doing it, right? Like we're focused on building this infrastructure that's going to be more than just, a highway or a pedestrian crossing here and there, right? It is really going to be an asset for the entire community, for all these communities we work in. So,
Well, let's pivot over to High Point and talk
Point.
about that one. So this is a construction project of this is another trail project. Describe that a little bit and some of the challenges involved as well.
Yeah, so High Point's not far from where we're here today in Winston Salem, right? It's the furniture capital of the world, right? High Point is well known still today. Twice a year they have the big furniture fair. Tens of thousands of people come from all over the world to buy furniture, wholesale. But to be frank, right, High Point has seen better days as well. Like it used to be the furniture manufacturing capital of the United States, right?
Always use look High Point, North Carolina.
Yeah, that's
there
it.
You go.
That's it. And a lot of manufacturing is gone, right? So they have some neighborhoods that have a lot of vacant industrial land, and Southwest High Point is one of them. It's just right next to downtown. And the city has been thinking for many, many years, what can we do to revitalize that part of town, but also make sure that downtown and the rest of the city is busy, not only those 2 times a year when the furniture fair is in town, right?
Generating that year-long economic activity which brings people in and sustains an economy.
Correct. So a little bit over a decade ago, a nonprofit came about called the Southwest Renewal Foundation of High Point. And they started convening all the partners, right? All the neighborhood groups, local government, regional, the Piedmont Triad Regional Council, and the state, right, to get together. Let's start making some investments here in Southwest High Point. And then it became clear to them that it was really important for 2 reasons. One is that that whole part of town is one of the most disadvantaged communities. All the industry leaving, a lot of folks were left behind. And then the second thing that was really amazing to them was that the headwaters of Richland Creek start right there in Southwest High Point, right next to the railroad tracks, right, that cross town. And it's an impaired stream, right, and it feeds the drinking water supply for over 500,000 people in a 3-county region. So those 2 things became really obvious to them, right? The community needs, and then the natural resource needs, right? It's an impaired stream. You need to clean that up. That's going to impact the drinking water supply for all these folks. So they started making a lot of plans, right, about creating a green district in Southwest High Point, right? And a lot of plans about how to clean up the creek. And after a lot of planning, they brought us in as well, and we helped them secure federal grants from many different programs. So the US DOT RAISE grant, that is funding a lot of this work right now that's under design. So it's going to build 3.5 miles of a greenway that loops around Southwest High Point, connecting it to downtown. And then north of downtown is transforming Elm Street into a complete street. So this is an area north of downtown that goes to the new baseball stadium, right? They've already invested a lot in redeveloping that section of town. And what this project will basically do is create one integrated spine network for transportation and recreation through High Point. It's going to be amazing, right? Like you're going to be able to bike or walk or hike.
All the way to the stadium.
All the way to the stadium, all the way downtown to go to the Furniture Fair if you want to, and then into Southwest High Point. And all these areas around the Greenway in Southwest are along the creek, and the creek is being restored as well, right? So it's going to be this green development district. They have a couple of breweries already, so breweries seem to be the solution to many problems.
Like the first thing comes, the brewery, and then everything else follows? And
a lot of the old mill buildings, right, are being redeveloped. Some of them become mixed use, some of them are like innovative light manufacturing. Some, artist based, right? Some artists took over. Some of them are very high-end, custom designed furniture.
It's really transforming this area. I can see it. I mean, if you're a furniture designer and you want to have like a nice little boutique, or you want to have, position yourself in High Point, number one. Number two, making use of these buildings that have been there for a while. It's got to be very attractive, and it's got to be something that really kind of makes it stand out. It's a great way of revitalizing communities. You and I were talking before we went on camera about some of the work that you've done with ASCE. Really focused on that next generation of engineering. Let's talk about kind of how did you get involved with engineering? What drove you to it, and why do you think it's for those out there who might be considering it, or maybe they're good at math, science, they like to build things, they like to figure out problems. Why is it a good field to get into?
Sure. Well, I was good in math and science, right? And my dad was an engineer, so that's how I got started. But I think for a lot of folks who are out there, a lot of kids that might be thinking about, what career track will I have? I think it's important to know that it's not a straight track, right? You can always take your time in college to figure it out. Community college if you need to go that way, right? But engineering is a really exciting profession, right? It's not just sitting in front of the computer all day. More and more these days, you have to interact with everybody, right? With the community, with government, and you have to be the bridge that really finds the technical solutions, not just looking at an engineering chart, but really being creative and trying to be more responsive to community needs.
You're shaping community, you're shaping the world around you, and you have a lasting impact on it. Right? I mean, the things that you're going to be able to look back and see these things built and go on these trails and say that you had a part in doing this. That hopefully reestablishes and reinvigorates the region. I mean, there are few professions that allow you to do that. I always like to say that engineering is one of those few professions that's focused on improving things. Its main goal is to enhance what is already there, right? And it's one of those things that's very rewarding.
And we have a huge shortage of engineers these days, right?
Absolutely.
So in the past 20, 30 years, a lot of folks have retired, right? And what we're seeing today is a huge demand for engineers. We have a really hard time finding enough people to hire, right? And I think we have to start right at the beginning, right? So used to be very involved with the Future Cities competition, which ASCE promotes throughout the country. And it's a very exciting program, right? Like it teaches kids from middle school, right, how engineering really works, right? So you go and you use SimCity to design a city in the computer. You build a real-life model to scale, and you have to make sure you design the moving part, something that actually,
something actually works.
That actually works. So it can't be just Legos, right? You might use robotics, but not Legos. You have to do it to a budget, right? And then you have to write about it and sell it, right, at the competition. So that's really, in a nutshell, is what an engineer does. And we're teaching the kids in the Future Cities competitions how to do it, and how exciting it can be.
Yeah. And it's an ongoing project. Go to ASCE's website to learn more about that. And of course, ASCE is a proud partner of the Engineering Roadshow. This is our way of kind of trying to get this out, look at projects, and show everything that engineering and public works can be. So, Spencer, I really appreciate you spending time with us this morning.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it was a great conversation on some really good projects. And again, this has been the Engineering and Public Works Roadshow, coming to you from the Great Trail State Conference. The Engineering and Public Works Roadshow is a combined effort from American Council of Engineering Companies, our friends at the American Public Works Association, and the American Society of Civil Engineers. We'll see you next time.